Hey, folks, we're here. Not as much sun here, but we are here with this week's Unfinished Business episode. But this week is your favorite deep dive where we talk about a movie exclusively for our time and give commentary on our thoughts on the movie, its history, its place in film history. This week it is my pick, or this episode it is my pick, and I have chosen 3 O'Clock High from 1987. It is a high school dramedy, more comedy, about a kind of nerdish kid who is set up to welcome the new kid and try and get an interview with him for the school paper. And when he tries to talk to him, he inadvertently kind of insults the guy, or that is at least how it is taken. And at 3 o'clock, he has to fight this guy. And basically the whole movie is we're going through the rundown until this fight at 3 o'clock. It's the various ways he tries to get out of it, people who he knows tries to get out of it, his little adventures, just trying to pass through the day, which make him kind of an instant celebrity at his high school. This came out in 1987, directed by Phil Jonois or Jonow.
Jonow, or yeah.
Yeah, and it was at first executive produced by Steven Spielberg, who then decided right before its release to take his name off of it, not because he thought, I don't like this movie, but because he felt that the film didn't need his name attached to it, that he felt that it would be successful with or without him. Unfortunately, it proved not to be as successful without him because it bombed in theaters. But it did get a cult audience on home video and cable and television, which is where I saw it many times and fell totally in love with this movie. Just in case you didn't know, I am Jeff Gallashaw, and I am here with my co-host Andre Joseph. And this just shows how excited I am for this movie. I love this movie. Obviously based on the Western High Noon, where, basically he's going to brave this out and not punk out and run home, even though he tries to. And he's trying to find anybody who's going to help him, except this is one-on-one, whereas in High Noon, it was him versus a whole gang. So, first and foremost, half of these characters look way too old to be high school characters. Yep. So that is, if this film was made now, that is the first thing that would change, is that the casting, because even Richard Tyson, who plays Buddy, the bully, and Jerry, played by another hard name, Casey Mazesco.
And Mazesco, yeah.
Not only were they older than their characters, they were both actually older than the director when making this film. This film is obviously also finds its inspiration in After Hours by Martin Scorsese. The camera work by Barry Sonnenfeld is just zoom, different angle all over the place, but not so much that it gets distracting, but kind of that MTV editing. Just not as much lights, fog, and neon. I'm trying to think what else can I say about this film before handing it over to your thoughts on the film. This film to me is just, when you hear the term, they don't make them like this anymore. This is one of the films that immediately comes to mind. I like the fact, obviously, since it was 1987, this was before weapons like guns were being snuck into school. So it never becomes a movie like The Principal with where, gangs got like AK-47s roaming the halls. This is, nothing but mano a mano. And it has some of my favorite clips and sound bites that I'm shocked have not made it to memes, including my favorite, even though this principal or dean is supposed to be knocked out, right before the final punch is thrown, he wakes up to say, "Don't fuck this one up, Mitchell!" And I am like, how does that not become a meme? Andre, tell me about your memories of 3 O'clock High.
So I want to add like a little bit of trivia regarding Steven Spielberg. Apparently, the reason he pulled out of the movie was because when it was first being put together, now he got Phil Winnow from directing, I think, 2 episodes of Amazing Stories. So that's how he got his start. I think he did the Santa 85 episode, and that pretty much propelled him into making movies. And apparently, I think the original vision for 3 O'clock High was to make it like a Karate Kid type of movie, the same tone and make it very sentimental. And then the fact that they ended up making it more like After Hours, that kind of bothered Spielberg. And I think that played a part in him deciding not to put his name on the movie. Plus, it probably would have been a hit with his name because Casey Zemesco, he was one of the bullies in Back to the Future. He was one of Biff's gang members, and then back in the sequels. So this was supposed to be like his Michael J. Fox level breakout role, and that quite did not happen. The first time I remember hearing about the movie, I used to go to a video store called Video Giant near my house. And I always, when I was roaming around as a kid looking for movies, that was one of the ones that was always passing me by because I loved that poster of Casey Zemesco being held by the guy's hand breaking through the clock. And that was always like a striking image to me. But then I didn't see the movie until I was much older. And I only saw it maybe like halfway through up until the very end with the fight. But I remember being gripped by it because I loved how he had to go through all these different obstacles to try to get himself out of the fight. Like whether he tried to bribe the guy or try to find like another like big dude to fight the guy, and then he gets his ass kicked. And then like all the sort of like the twists and turns that it takes where he's got the female friend that wants to like sleep with him because she thinks he's gonna die. Then the flirtation with the English teacher, you know, when he's like reciting the poetry and then he starts making out with her. So it takes on like almost these absurd, whimsical moments that doesn't make it feel like a John Hughes movie in that sense. It feels something like we're going to take a very simplistic premise and we're going to go completely over the top with it, down to the security, the principal, the other students, and so on. And it just makes it feel like it's animated in that sense. And another thing I really like that kind of grounds it is the Tangerine Dream score.
Oh,
and
of course.
the thing that always made me laugh is they did a screening at the New Beverly many years ago, and Phil Winnow and Richard Tyson were in attendance, so they did a Q&A afterwards. And Phil Winnow was talking about doing the score with Tangerine Dream and how like they were taking it so seriously as they watched the movie and they were composing music to it. And it was like they were making remarks as they were like doing the score. They're like, yes, this is where he wants to murder the boy. They want to kill the boy. These German guys like trying to make it seem like it's a drama about this bully want to like murder this kid. I mean, I still laugh when I think about it. And it's, you know, obviously it did Risky Business long before that. So it definitely gives it like that dreamy atmosphere that, you know, the sort of after hours feel that it takes. And it's just enjoyable. It's a fun film that really never got enough credit at the time. I think there are a couple filmmakers that have cited it as an inspiration, but yeah, I mean, it's a blast for what it is, and simple enough, but entertaining at the same time to make it at least a little bit different. And Richard Tyson is he's freaking scary in this.
Right before Kindergarten Cop.
Well, you can see why he got the part. You need like, okay, if Arnold's going to do a kids movie, get a guy that's scary, but not scary enough that he would start murdering people in the movie.
And reading up on this film, do you know who was the runner-up for the lead role of Jerry?
No.
It would have changed this movie's history totally. Kirk Cameron. And
oh my god, he probably would disown this movie by now.
Oh yes, the teacher scenes alone, he would have been like, I cannot support this. And but I mean, this movie. This is one of those movies when growing up that was like my inspiration. This is like how Raising Arizona with the Coen brothers was animated. This is animated in that same way where you can just keep watching it over and over again. I mean, there's the girl who's his girlfriend who's into new age things and believes in psychics and talking to dead spirits. There's the robbery of the school store, which I was like, oh, that showed you how much money this community had. They had a school store. How everybody at the end tries to come through for him by buying sheets of paper for $1 each. I also kind of like, again, since we're talking about this, spoiler alert, but you should have seen this movie by now. I like the moment when Jerry realized he has to really do the fight, when he lets him cheat off of his paper, and in the end, he knew the answers the whole time, so he really didn't even have to show him the cheat, and then he called him a pussy for even just not even trying. Though Buddy was a little ridiculous when he's like, he knows he can pummel this kid, and then he breaks out like, oh, I'm gonna break out some brass knuckles though. It's, you know, like for this little guy, come on. It was like, but it was needed because in the third act, it's used. So.
And it's also cool. One thing I liked about the movie the first time I saw it was the fact that ultimately in the end, Zemesco's character doesn't pussy out of the fight. Like he gives him a good, run for his money. And yeah, he takes a whooping. It was sort of like with the movie Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. Like he gets into a fight. It's not going to suddenly be this cartoonish over the top thing. Like he gets his ass kicked, but then he keeps going until he finally gets his comeuppance. And I think that made it even more grounded in that sense. Unrealistic, but giving him that chance to be a tough guy and how they handled it was pretty interesting for the 1980s.
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt that he had a little bit of help in that fight, with his friend distracting Buddy. Yeah. And Buddy basically knocking out like 3 teachers before he can even get to them. It's like, well, you're kind of you're like time in the corner to rest while Buddy's like all action this whole fight. And I like, well, obviously they didn't know these actors would go on, but I like that you have what's his name, Mitch Pileggi from X-Files playing, the security guard. You have Philip Baker Hall, as the detective. That the school store gets robbed, and they actually have a police detective. I'm like, isn't that what school security is for?
It's the 80s. They didn't take that stuff seriously.
I'm just like, and the running commentary from his little sister throughout the film.
Yeah.
And where it's like, does she ever go to class?
It's just doing some kind of wonderful. It's like the same exact character.
I could see that. And I like the weird, I guess, characters or students he comes across. That guy who's dressed up like, was it? One of those street vigilante guardian angels who has the beret and the jacket, who's asking him, like, can he at least put up a fight for this many minutes so he can get his bet going? And then the AV Club trying to make a documentary on him throughout. Of course, the only teacher of real note, the one he tries to flirt with to get, I guess, detention, and it doesn't work. They actually added her scene at the end because in the original cut, it was like, okay, you guys are just going to have that one scene and then we never see her again. So the audience wanted to see her again. So that's why we get that ending with, her kissing him in the store. And it's like, what the hell is going on there? That's something that obviously would not play today.
Yeah, that was Spielberg's contribution, by the way.
Oh, figures. Well, I guess he gets his fantasy, even though he now has the most popular girl in school kind of wanting to date him, and only because, he fought Buddy Revell. But my question, what happens to Buddy after all this? You assaulted 3 teachers, you lost a fight, and you begrudgingly give him his money back, all crumpled. It's like, now, is he suspended or expelled when it seemed like he just wanted to go to school? And now, if they want to do a Cobra Kai type, what happened?
Maybe he found Jesus like Kirk Cameron.
Maybe, but if they ever wanted to do a TV series, I can understand if they did it like Cobra Kai, where now we see it from Buddy's point of view.
Yeah.
I'd be like, though I think that would only be one season. I don't think we need multiple seasons. Like you said, the Tangerine Dream. That I think anytime they tend to do a score for, especially a 1980s film, it just makes it all the more memorable. And because they also did they do a score for Legend also?
Did they do a score for Legend? I think they did. I could be wrong.
And then I think because I know somebody did a score for Legend and they decided not to use it at all.
It was rejected. Yeah, I think it was Tangerine Dream.
Okay, because I feel like that would have probably fit that movie. You know, the dream, since it's all a fairy tale anyway. And in a way, I know you didn't see it, but this film also seems like a precursor to The Green Knight, which I just recently saw in theaters. Only because it's the same thing about honor and, you know, what would happen if you tried to get out of something without earning it, you know, without honor. And, you know, all these experiences that lead the character to be, you know, more of the heroic and deeper person. So, I mean, I love 3 O'Clock High. I will even go as far as say, I don't find anything really wrong with the movie. It's flawless to me. And
Technically,
maybe,
did they remake it as a fist fight with Ice Cube and Charlie Day?
yeah, and that pretty much killed all the good memories or any happy things of remaking it totally. You know, I could see if they had remade it and like Charlie Day played one of the teachers and Ice Cube could have been like the dean. But other than that, I'm like, this should have stayed as a teen story, not 2 teachers.
Right.
Really, the less said about fist fight, the better. I don't really have too many nice things to say about that movie. I love this movie, so it even being based upon this movie even hurt its chances.
Yeah, and also Richard Christian Matheson, I Am Legend, he wrote the script.
Oh, see, I did not know that, see? And so
Great sci-fi writer, that's pretty significant.
And this was the first role, at least on screen, of Yeardley Smith. And
yeah, that's right. Lisa Simpson was in this.
Yes, interestingly enough, she played a cheerleader, and that we never really get a close.
Her first acting role was actually The Legend of Billie Jean.
Oh, I've seen that one. Well, this movie, I know we never see a close-up of her. We see her more in passing, but we always hear her voice. You know,
you cannot distinguish that voice.
Exactly. I mean, you have Jeffrey Tambor's in this is the only thing he does run the school store.
What it looks like. I don't know if he teaches or whatever else he does.
Again, this school store premise is just like a lot of questions here. I know I'm not supposed to ask them, but I have a lot of questions about it. Does the money go to the school or is it goes into this guy's pocket?
Good question.
Since they took it so seriously that there was a robbery. Okay, thinking 1987, is there any other way you would have cast this?
Besides Kirk Cameron falling off a church and finding God, I don't know. I mean, you have to have somebody that's relatively scrawny. I mean, maybe like Keith Coogan would have been all right. Sean Astin probably could have pulled it off. You know, like somebody that was like already like maybe like they were a teen, but they weren't like a high school senior level teenager. You know, someone that you could plausibly believe would really be bullied by this guy and have to put up a fight. You can't have it be Michael J. Fox or someone that you expect to be able to handle their own. So, yeah, I mean, you could have gotten somebody with a little more drawing power than Casey Zemesco, but Casey Zemesco was still a good choice because he was an unknown. So you bought him as his character and followed that journey without thinking, oh, well, I've seen him in this other movie, so you know he's going to succeed. We really don't know. So that kind of adds to the aesthetic of the picture, much like Griffin Dunne in After Hours. You don't know what the hell's going to happen to that guy when he's out in the city.
Well, again, it's sort of like when you're watching a horror film, only here it works because you don't know what to expect because you don't know these actors or their character types. So it's like they're capable of anything. even though, Buddy's pretty one note, but still, he's that shark, who's just always looming. And at least for a teen film, at least they include adults in this. It's not just like, oh, it's only going to be students. And this would be one of those movies that I wouldn't, with the right people behind it, I wouldn't mind seeing it be remade. And, updated, obviously, but I wouldn't have minded it. But, not try to remake it with adults, because then it's like, well, you guys are old enough to know better. So it makes no sense. No matter how much I might like Charlie Day or Ice Cube. And, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this film overall?
I would give it a 7.
A 7? Wow. See, I'm on the other side of the aisle. This is a 9. I'm like, other than maybe the actors looking too old in certain roles, I have no problems with this movie. And other than maybe in the form of technology, I don't feel like if I had kids today who were teenagers, I don't think they'd necessarily be bored by this movie. I think they could relate to it for the most part, other than asking, oh, why didn't you use a cell phone? But everything else pretty much, fits. It's 1987. Cast could have been a little more diverse, but there's a lot of movies I can say that about.
And I don't even look at the diversity issue when I watch that film.
And I just wish Phil, however he says his last name, would have went on to bigger and better, films.
He did State of Grace with Sean Penn. He did a lot of YouTube videos back in the 90s. There were some duds like Final Analysis and Heaven's Prisoners.
I was going to say, Heaven's Prisoners. I remember that one.
Gridiron Gang with The Rock, which I actually kind of liked. I didn't think it was a bad film. And he did the Punisher short, Dirty Laundry, for Thomas Jane, which was like the best Punisher adaptation before John Barenthal took the role.
Well, my thing is then if they would have ever made another Thomas Jane Punisher movie, he should have directed, or maybe he should have directed it in the first place, the first one, with instead of the screenwriter turned director Jonathan Hensley.
Yeah, I think he definitely had talent back in that day. I think once this film didn't perform well and Spielberg pulled away from him, that definitely had a negative effect on his career.
Sort of, I would say, almost like Fred Decker with Monster.
I mean, Fred Decker just RoboCop 3 and then nobody hired him again, whereas here, Bill Leno still got work. It just, he didn't do like a big blockbuster smash hit after that.
No, unfortunately, he did Heaven's Prisoners. Which I really remember for topless Terry Hatcher and Eric Roberts having cornrolls, I believe.
Yeah, what the hell is that? And they kill off Kelly Lynch? Like, what the hell, man?
I'm just like, it's different. It's not good, but it's different. But yeah, that's the hot spot. Maybe not hot spot. That's Heaven's Prisoner. See, they were so interchangeable. It's like, but that we'll talk. Maybe we'll talk about other Phil, Jonois.
If somebody can pronounce it properly, let us know.
Exactly. We'll discuss his films then, or maybe if we ever review another one. But that ends our business for this week. But as always, we have unfinished business, even in the deep dive. But before I go, I have to ask, have you seen She's Having a Baby? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. Andre, what movie would you like to recommend?
Have you seen Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
Agreed. And if you haven't seen either or, you obviously don't like watching movies before a certain time, because these are both, I would say classics, but not necessarily celebrated classics.
A summer tradition.
Exactly. So that is the end of this week. We'll see you next time. But if you need to reach us or want to comment, and in the show's notes, there's plenty of places you can reach us. And we really want to hear your comments or your suggestions for shows. We really love feedback. So until then, we will talk to you next time.